for politics. Considering that Jesus's whole ministry was predicated on declaring that the kingdom from God has come, it's not an overestimate to say that the Christian worldview has politics running all the way through it. Politics is essentially how people are governed. And by what theories, by what values, by what worldview. And God has been governing his creation with a council of Elohim. And in the same way, we have developed human government. So the Bible doesn't give specific instructions on what system of government should be prescribed for a nation. Rather, the Bible presents principles and foundations for how to build a government from the bottom up, or give Christians, those that have put their faith in Jesus and are listening to and following what he says, gives Christians guidance on how to respond to tyrannical top-down government.
How should Christians influence government? Well, before we talk about that, I think we have to clear out of the way some wrong views. And there are, I think, 5 wrong positions on this. One is what I call compel religion. That is, the government should compel people to go to certain churches or support certain belief systems. That is wrong because it violates the fact that genuine religious faith has to be voluntary, can't be compelled by force. Number 2 is the opposite view, and that is exclude religion from the public square, exclude religion from any influence on government. And that's the view that's promoted by certain secularist groups, both in the United States and the UK. I think that's contrary to the biblical teachings about Daniel influencing Nebuchadnezzar, John the Baptist influencing Herod, Paul influencing the Roman governor, and the fact that the Bible teaches about the moral standards and the responsibilities of government. So I think we should bring Christian influence to bear. Compel religion is wrong, exclude religion is wrong. There's another view, kind of a minority view, that says government is evil and it's the area of Satan's control and influence, and Christians shouldn't be involved in it, shouldn't serve in government, or at least if they do, it's not advancing the kingdom of God. But that view is incorrect because Romans 13 says the civil authority is God's servant for your good, not Satan's servant, God's servant. So those who work in civil government, those who work as in the military or police force, I think that Romans 13 says you should view your task as something that is God-given, and you're serving God in that. And I think that goes for Christians influencing politics or serving as members of parliament or something like that as well. They're God's servants. The 4th view is do evangelism, not politics. And that is, the church shouldn't get involved in any political issues. But my question to them is, well, what parts of the Bible are you deciding not to preach on? Are you going to preach on Romans 13 that talks about the role of government? What about 1 Peter 2? Shouldn't we preach the whole counsel of God, even about government? So, and the last, let's see, so compel religion is wrong, exclude religion is wrong, government is evil and satanic is wrong, do evangelism, not politics is wrong. And the last view isn't very common among evangelicals, but it has been historically common, and that is do politics, not evangelism. That is, just transform society and that'll bring heaven on earth, or that's all that God calls us to do. And more liberal Protestant churches, at least in the United States in the early part of the 20th century, were involved in this social gospel. We just need to transform society through our actions. But they forgot personal evangelism. Well, that's wrong. So those are 5 wrong views. The right view, I think, is the 6th one, and that is significant Christian influence on government.
The Bible presents civil government as necessary and instituted by God. Necessary because at the end times, when all of this world has been finished and Jesus has come back, that the Christians will be ruling and reigning with Jesus on the earth as it was intended in the first place. So government is, or politics in government is not just a product of this world. It's a product of the unseen world as well, and into eternity, into the future. It's instituted by God because of the mandate to Adam and Eve to subdue and to rule the earth in the model of the Garden of Eden that God presented to them. So God planted a garden and he said, go make the rest of the earth look like Eden. They sinned, and obviously that plan was delayed. But the issue is that God was telling them to rule and reign, to practice ruling and reigning, because the idea was that he was going to rule with them on this earth. The Bible describes the role of government as being God's agent for the judgment of evil and wrongdoing, to uphold judicial justice by enforcing good, well-reasoned, general laws and principles, favouring no one specifically, but administering a type of grace and justice to all who live under the government. The biblical worldview places human government as a service to what is more primary, and that is the family. A political position in Australia is called a ministry. It's a commissioning to serve the people. That's what it's supposed to be. But anyway, I digress. When human government operates within its boundaries, the Christian is to submit and be a good citizen. When, however, the government moves out of its place, demanding that the Christian view human government as primary, usurping the role of God in the Christian's life, Yahweh, the Christian is to reject that authority.
There was a transition from the time in which God was working only with one nation to a time in which the gospel went to all nations of the earth. And so Jesus was saying that there is an area that Caesar should not control, and that is the area that belongs to God. And also, by implication, there is an area that Caesar controls, and the government of the church should not seek to govern or control the civil government either.
The Bible leaves room for your conscience. And so it doesn't tell you to rebel, because you shouldn't. You shouldn't rebel. Rebelling is where evil came from in the garden. Making sure that you don't do anything to disobey God. And if that means your death, historically has borne this out, that's what Christians did. They willingly went to death so that they didn't disobey God. The idea is not to fear government, but for the Christian to stand up to government and to call the government to good government. Good government, not only for themselves, but for all the people, everybody. Good government serves people. Bad government usurps authority and enforces its will on people. So Mark chapter 10, verse 42 to 45, this is Jesus speaking. And Jesus called them to him and said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles, that's people who aren't Jews, lord it over them. And their great ones, their generals, exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be a slave to all. For even so, the Son of Man, that's Jesus' favorite phrase to refer to himself and his mission. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus there is teaching his disciples. It's not about power. It's about service